What should Christians believe about interracial marriage? Well, first of all, interracial marriage assumes there's more than one race of people. Actually, there's only one race of people. The Bible makes it very, very clear that all human beings are descendants of two people, Adam and Eve. If that is true, then biologically there's only one race. 1 Corinthians 15:45 says Adam was the first man. Genesis 3:20 says Eve was to be the mother of all the living. The Bible makes it very clear there was only one man and one woman to start with. Now, Acts 17:26 says God made from one man all nations of men to dwell on the face of the earth. We all go back to one man. Biologically, then, there's only one race, which is very, very interesting because in the year 2000, the Human Genome Project, which was actually headed by an atheist, they collected DNA samples from different groups of people all over the world, and then they released their findings to the world. There's only one race. Of course there's only one race. They're only confirming what the Bible teaches, that we all go back to Adam and Eve. Now, why do we see so many different groups of people on the earth today? What about different colors? Aren't there black people and white people? Well, first of all, there are no black people and there are no white people. Technically, every human being has the same skin color. It's a pigment called melanin. There's other pigments, but the main pigment is melanin, which is a brown pigment. And you can have a lot of it, you can have a little bit of it. It depends on your genetics. And so you can be a dark shade, you can be a light shade, you can be anywhere in between. Actually, there's many examples of twins, one dark, one light. It's just because of the genetics of the parents and the combination that the twins received in regard to how much melanin that they would have. And it was the event of the Tower of Babel in the Bible that actually caused the differences we see in people groups around the world, because when God gave different languages, probably about 70 different languages, because Genesis 10 lists the table of nations there, and there's 70 different families that moved away from each other according to their languages, because God had judged their rebellion there at the time of the Tower of Babel. And as a result of that, because those groups were isolated depending on who married who, which combinations of genes survived, etc., how much they did or did not mix with others, you end up with distinct people groups, but not races. That means there's no such thing as interracial marriage biologically. That means there's no such thing as biracial children either. There's only one race children because we all go back to Adam and Eve. Now, there is an interracial marriage the Bible does speak against, but it's not biological, it's spiritual. In other words, don't be unequally yoked. A Christian should never knowingly marry a non-Christian. That is the interracial marriage the Bible speaks about, and it's a catastrophe for families, because then it destroys passing that spiritual legacy on from one generation to the next. You know, I've actually had pastors tell me, well, wait a minute, what about the fact that God told the Israelites not to marry the Canaanites? Weren't they keeping the races separate? That had nothing to do with biology. It had everything to do with the spiritual state of people's hearts, because the Canaanites were pagans. That's why the Israelites were told not to marry Canaanites. But remember, when you have Rahab, who was a Canaanite, the Bible tells us that she's in the genealogy leading to Jesus, and she's even mentioned in Hebrews 11 as a great person of faith. How could that be? Because she stopped being a Canaanite spiritually and became an Israelite spiritually, believing in the one true God. Then she's free to marry someone who believes in the one true God. In other words, it had to do with the spiritual state of their heart, had nothing to do with biology. So there's no such thing as interracial marriage biologically.